Have you ever looked in the mirror and asked, is this it? Is this the best I can be? That quiet question, it doesn't always come with fireworks. It shows up in moments of stillness, a pause in traffic, the silence before sleep. It's not about being perfect. It's about becoming more aligned, more present, more you. Let me share 6 essential paths that can help you evolve. Not into someone new, but into the person you've always had the potential to be. We often misunderstand where to begin. We wait. We hesitate. We think we need to be sure, need to be ready, need to be confident. But what if confidence isn't the starting point at all? What if it's the byproduct, the result of something far more fundamental? Most people spend their lives waiting. They wait until they feel braver, stronger, more skilled. They wait until the stars align and the fear fades. But fear doesn't fade. Uncertainty doesn't vanish. And confidence rarely arrives uninvited. That's because confidence isn't what begins the journey. It's what shows up along the way, after you've already taken the first few steps into the unknown. The true beginning isn't confidence. It's clarity. Clarity is powerful. It is quiet and calm, not loud and boastful like confidence. Clarity doesn't need to scream. It simply knows. And when you know, when something resonates so deeply that it stirs something in your soul, that's when you begin to move. Not because you're unafraid, but because the direction is suddenly undeniable. Clarity cuts through the noise of expectation, fear, and perfectionism. It silences the voice that says you're not ready and replaces it with a quieter truth. You're ready enough. But clarity doesn't always arrive in a dramatic lightning bolt moment. Sometimes it whispers, it nudges, it shows up in the form of a question. What matters to me? Why do I care? These questions are deceptively simple, yet life-altering. Because when you know what matters, when you know why you care, you unlock something deeper than motivation. You unlock meaning. Take Sarah, for example. She wasn't confident. In fact, she was exhausted, stuck, and scared. She was in a job that drained her every single day. Friends, family, even mentors told her to wait. Wait until the timing made sense. Wait until she had more savings. Wait until someone gave her permission. But clarity doesn't operate on calendars or consensus. It breaks through in moments of honesty. One day Sarah stopped asking, when will I be ready? And instead asked, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? That one question changed everything, because it stripped away the excuse. It revealed what she already knew deep down. She didn't want to work in an office anymore. She wanted to build a life rooted in healing, movement, and joy. She wanted to open a wellness studio. Did she march into work the next day and quit with a flourish? No. She wasn't reckless, but she was clear. And that clarity gave her a path. First, she got certified. Then she taught a few classes on the side. She started slow, but she started. Each step built trust. Each small win grew her confidence. And eventually she made the leap. Today, she runs a thriving wellness brand. Not because she was confident, but because she was clear. And in that clarity, she found courage. Clarity doesn't mean having the entire plan laid out. It doesn't mean knowing what step 5 or 10 looks like. It means knowing what step 1 is. You don't need the whole map. You just need to know where to place your foot next. When we're obsessed with confidence, we want the map. We want guarantees. But when we start with clarity, we accept the journey for what it is. Uncertain, imperfect, and deeply human. And this is where most people get stuck. They think the absence of confidence is a stop sign. They say things like, I'm not ready. I don't know enough. What if I fail? But clarity reframes those doubts. Clarity doesn't pretend you won't fail. It shows you why the risk is still worth it. When you know what matters, when you connect to something bigger than fear, the fear starts to lose its grip. It's still there. Yes, but it doesn't get to drive anymore. The truth is, clarity is far more sustainable than confidence. Confidence can wave. It can be shaken by a bad day, a critical comment, or a missed opportunity. But clarity endures. When you're clear on why you're doing what you're doing, you can weather the storms. You can keep going when the path gets hard, when progress is slow, when others don't understand. Because your compass isn't approval, it's purpose. I've seen it time and time again. The people who build meaningful, lasting impact in the world, aren't the ones who started off the most confident. They're the ones who dared to get honest with themselves. They're the ones who asked, what do I want to give to this world? And what do I need to be true to myself? And once they had those answers, they acted. Maybe not loudly, maybe not quickly, but consistently. We are taught to chase confidence as if it's a badge of honor. But the truth is, most of the confident people you admire, whether they're leaders, creators, or innovators, didn't start that way. They began with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. What set them apart wasn't an unshakable belief in themselves. It was a deep-rooted belief in what they were doing. That's clarity. That's what moves people. That's what starts revolutions, internally and externally. So the next time you're waiting, the next time you tell yourself you're not ready, pause. Stop looking for confidence. Ask instead, what matters to me? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? Who could I become if I let clarity lead? Just for today. And then take one step, just one, because that step, rooted in clarity, will do more for your growth, your joy, and your impact than a lifetime spent waiting for confidence to magically appear. Clarity invites you to begin. Confidence will catch up. We live in a world that celebrates performance. From the moment we enter school, we're taught to measure ourselves against rubrics, grades, standards, someone else's idea of success. We learn quickly that applause feels good, approval becomes addictive, and before we know it, we're performing, not living. We become experts in playing roles: the dedicated employee, the reliable partner, the doting parent, the loyal friend. Every step we take is calculated, every decision filtered through the question, what will they think? We climb ladders we never chose, chase goals that never belong to us, and wear masks so well we forget the face underneath. But there's a quiet voice inside each of us that refuses to be silenced. Sometimes it shows up as restlessness in the middle of a perfect moment. Other times it comes as anxiety that no amount of achievement can soothe. And sometimes it shows up as a gnawing emptiness, this sense that even though we've done everything right, something still feels wrong. That voice is not weakness. It's true. It's the part of you that remembers who you were before the world told you who you should be, and ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It makes it louder. So we perform, we post the highlight reels, we follow the script, we impress the world while quietly betraying ourselves. And eventually we confuse the role we're playing with the person we are, until one day, something cracks. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's a relationship that falls apart. Maybe it's waking up and realizing the life you've built doesn't feel like yours. Whatever it is, that crack is the beginning of clarity. Because when the performance breaks down, the truth has a chance to break through. There's a story I once heard, one that I can't share. A nurse who spent her life in palliative care, walking alongside people in their final days, shared something profound. She said the most common regret she heard from the dying wasn't about working too much or loving too little. It wasn't about money or missed opportunity. The number one regret was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the one others expected of me. That's devastating. To get to the end of your life and realize you never actually lived your life, that you played your part so well, you never even questioned the script, that you were so busy being good, successful, admired, that you never stopped to be real. What a tragic price to pay for approval. But it doesn't have to be that way. Alignment is possible. It starts when we stop performing and start listening. Listening to that small, powerful voice that keeps asking, what about me? Not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way. What about the parts of you that have been silenced? The dreams you shelved because they didn't fit the plan. The truth you buried to keep the peace. The passion you downplayed to stay practical. The world doesn't need more perfectly polished versions of who we think we should be. The world needs more truth, more vulnerability, more people who are brave enough to live in alignment with who they really are. And alignment isn't about quitting your job or running off to Bali. Although it might be. It's about making decisions that come from you, not the pressure around you. It's about asking, is this choice a reflection of my truth or a reaction to someone else's expectation? And that's not easy. Living in alignment means disappointing people. It means saying no to opportunities that look great on paper but feel wrong in your gut. It means setting boundaries with people you love. It means being misunderstood.
But it also means freedom, not the kind of freedom that's about doing whatever you want, whenever you want, but the kind of freedom that comes from no longer needing to pretend. The freedom of integrity, the peace of being whole. I've seen it happen. I've seen people trade applause for authenticity and discover that they can breathe again. I've seen someone walk away from a high-powered career to teach kids and light up in a way money never could. I've seen someone finally come out after decades of hiding and feel seen for the first time in their life. I've seen someone say, "I'm tired of pretending," and start creating from a place so raw and real that it moved everyone around them. Alignment isn't a destination, it's a daily decision, a constant choosing of yourself in a world that rewards conformity. And it's not just about self-fulfillment, it's about impact. Because when you live in alignment, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror, reflecting back the possibility of what's real, not just what's acceptable. And there's nothing more powerful than that. When you stop performing, you create space for your truest contribution to emerge. You weren't born to fit. You were born to express something no one else can. Your story, your perspective, your truth. It matters, but it can't come through if you're too busy trying to be impressive. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be honest, fully alive, unapologetically. And yes, alignment can be lonely at first, but it's also magnetic. The more you live your truth, the more the right people find you. The more you trust yourself, the less you need validation. The more you stand in your values, the more grounded you become. And that's when life begins to feel like yours. Not a performance, not a projection, but a powerful expression of who you really are. So today, ask yourself, am I performing, or am I aligning? Am I chasing applause, or am I answering a deeper call? And if the answer scares you, that's okay. That means you're getting close. Don't let fear keep you in a role that no longer fits. You get one life. Make sure it's yours.
We live in a culture that glorifies the hustle, the rise and grind, the all-nighters, the sleepless chase for success. We admire those who wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We reward those who sacrifice their well-being for productivity. We idolize the ones who keep moving, keep building, keep climbing no matter what. But have we ever stopped to ask, what are we running from? Look, sometimes hustle isn't about passion or purpose. Sometimes hustle is just a mask. A carefully constructed distraction that keeps us from looking too closely at the pain we've buried beneath the surface. Pain that whispers in the quiet moments. Pain that shows up when we finally slow down. So we don't slow down, we speed up, we get louder. We stay busy. We keep the meetings going, the projects flowing, the phone ringing, because stillness terrifies us. But the truth is, what we don't face will eventually face us. Our unhealed wounds don't disappear just because we keep moving. They evolve. They get smarter. They find new ways to show up through self-sabotage, through broken relationships, through burnout. They leak into our leadership, into our work, into the way we speak to others, and the way we speak to ourselves. And before long, that pain becomes a pattern. Patterns left unchecked become your prison. There's this belief that we can compartmentalize our pain, that we can keep it tucked away in a neat little box while we go out into the world and build our dreams. But your soul doesn't work that way. You can't separate your personal story from your professional life. You bring all of you into every room you enter, whether you want to or not. The past doesn't stay in the past just because you pretend it doesn't exist. That childhood story you never processed is driving your need for perfection. That betrayal you never healed from, it's shaping how much you trust your team. That failure you never accepted, it's the reason you don't take big risks anymore. We think we're escaping these things, but we're carrying them into everything we touch. Healing is hard. It's inconvenient. It doesn't look good on social media. It won't get you applause. It won't always make sense. And that's why most people skip it. But healing is the most courageous work you will ever do. Because healing asks you to stop performing, to stop posturing, to sit in the discomfort, to listen to your own story with honesty, and to offer yourself the compassion you've been so quick to give everyone else. According to Harvard Medical School, unresolved emotional trauma is not just an emotional problem, it's a physical one. It's a performance problem. It's a leadership problem. The data is clear. Those who do not confront and process their trauma are significantly more prone to burnout, depression, anxiety, chronic illness. And these aren't just side effects. They are red flags. They are warning signs screaming, slow down. Pay attention. You can't outrun what's inside of you. You can't build something meaningful on a foundation of pain you refuse to acknowledge. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is that we'll deal with it later, that we'll process it when we have time, after the launch, after the race, after the next milestone. But healing doesn't wait. It doesn't care about your calendar. It shows up when you least expect it. And if you ignore it, it will make you listen one way or another. Some of us have built entire lives, entire businesses, entire identities on top of unhealed pain. We've mistaken coping mechanisms for strengths. We've labeled our hyper-independence as confidence, our perfectionism as excellence, our overworking as dedication. But those aren't strengths. They're survival strategies. They helped you get here, but they can't take you where you're meant to go. There's a deeper version of you waiting on the other side of healing. A version that doesn't hustle to feel worthy, that doesn't chase achievements to prove something, that doesn't confuse productivity with purpose. That version of you leads differently, lives differently, and the world needs that version of you, not the polished one, not the performance, not the brand, the real one. And here's the beautiful irony. When you heal, you hustle better. You lead with clarity. You create from whole. You attract the right people because you're no longer operating from scarcity or fear. Your energy changes. Your focus sharpens. Your vision expands. Healing doesn't make you soft. It makes you strong in a way that hustle never could. It gives you a kind of quiet power that doesn't need to prove itself. A grounded confidence that doesn't need to shout to be heard. So no, healing is not a luxury. It's not a side quest. It's not something you do if you have time. Healing is the work. It is central to your becoming. Because the world doesn't need more burned out divers. It doesn't need more leaders who have mastered the art of appearing fine while slowly unraveling inside. The world needs people who are whole, who are honest, who are willing to do the work not just out there but in here. We often say we want to make an impact, that we want to lead change. But real change always starts within. And if you're not willing to heal, you'll repeat the very cycles you claim to stand against. Not because you're bad, not because you're broken, but because you're human. And healing is the invitation that every human receives. Not everyone accepts it, but those who do, they create ripple effects that go far beyond their careers. They shift cultures. They raise the bar. They redefine what success actually means. So if you're tired, if you're hurting, if you're wondering why the hustle isn't fulfilling you like it used to, maybe it's not because you're doing the wrong work. Maybe it's because you haven't done this work. The work of healing, the work that doesn't show up on your resume but echoes in every room you walk into. Heal before you hustle, not because healing is easy, but because you're worth it. Comfort is a beautiful place. It's soft, warm, familiar. It welcomes us with open arms and gently whispers, stay here, you're safe. And often we listen, because it's tempting, because we're human, because safety feels like survival. But the truth is, survival is not the same as living. Comfort can keep us breathing. Yeah, but growth, that uncomfortable, often messy, deeply human process, that's what makes us feel alive. That's what moves us from merely existing to becoming. Growth never feels convenient. It doesn't come with a warning. It shows up unannounced, disguised as failure, uncertainty, rejection. It looks like loss. It feels like being exposed. But it's in those moments when life stretches us beyond our limits that we are introduced to the person we're capable of becoming. The stronger version, the braver version, the version that doesn't just respond to life but begins to shape. The choice between comfort and growth is rarely dramatic. Most of the time it's quiet. It's in the conversations we avoid because they might be awkward. It's in the job we stay in because it pays the bills, even though our soul is starved. It's in the dream we shelve, not because it's impossible, but because it's inconvenient.
Every day, life gives us these invisible crossroads. And every day we get to choose. Think about that for a moment. Every breakthrough you've ever had started with discomfort. The first time you stood up for yourself. The moment you admitted you didn't know the answer. That day you took a leap. Sent the email, made the call. Walked away, or walked towards something that terrified you. You didn't know what would happen. But you did it anyway. That was your courage. Speaking louder than your fear. And this isn't just about individual transformation. This is how change happens in the world. Real change is born from people willing to sit in discomfort longer than they sit in certainty. People like Mandela, who didn't just suffer in silence. He grew in silence. Imagine the kind of emotional clarity it takes to spend nearly 3 decades in a prison cell. To be stripped of freedom, dignity, family, and future, and still emerge with a heart, ready to forgive, ready to build, ready to lead. He could have chosen comfort. He could have chosen rage. He had every reason to, but he knew that bitterness would bind him more tightly than any prison bars ever could. And so he made a different choice. He chose growth. And in doing so, he invited an entire nation to grow with him. That is the power of choosing what is difficult over what is easy, what is right over what is safe. Growth is contagious. When one person chooses to be better instead of bitter, it gives others permission to do the same. But you don't need to be on the world stage to make that kind of impact. You just need to pay attention to the uncomfortable places in your own life. The ones that are asking for more from you. More honesty, more bravery, more compassion. Growth doesn't require a spotlight. It just needs you to show up where you are with what you have. And take the next bold step, even if your voice shakes. Even if your knees wobble. Even if you're not sure it'll work out. We live in a culture obsessed with outcomes. We worship success, often ignoring the process that forged it. But real growth is forged in the dark. It's forged in the mornings when you get up even though you don't feel like it. It's in the nights you spend wrestling with yourself. It's in the apologies you offer, the boundaries you set, the truth you tell when lying would be easier. That's where character is formed. That's where legacy is born. There's this myth we tell ourselves that we'll feel ready when the time comes. But readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. You decide to go, to speak, to move. Even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared. Because fear isn't the enemy, paralysis is. And discomfort isn't a warning sign. It's a green light. It means you're stretching. It means something in you is waking up. And let's be honest, most of us are not afraid of failure. We're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of what people will think if we try and fall short. But the only people who will ever mock your growth are the ones too afraid to begin their own. Don't let their comfort cost you your calling. Don't let their complacency dull your courage. Growth demands that we give up who we were for who we could be. And that's terrifying, because it means letting go of identities we've clung to for years. Stories we've told ourselves about what we can and cannot do. But here's the good news. Growth doesn't require perfection. Just permission. Permission to be seen trying. Permission to stumble. Permission to evolve. You see, life is not asking you to have all the answers. It's asking you to show up. And in every moment where you feel uncomfortable, life is whispering, this is the place. This is where the work is. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because growth isn't just about achieving more. It's about becoming more present, more real, more you. So when you feel that resistance, the kind that rises in your chest when you're about to step into something new, don't run. Lean in. That resistance is not a wall. It's a doorway. Walk through it. You may not recognize yourself on the other side, but I promise you'll be proud of the person who made the journey. That version of you. The one who's braver, bolder, more fulfilled. They're not waiting in the future. They're being built right now in the stretch, in the sweat, in the silence. And years from now when you look back, you won't remember how easy things were. You'll remember how you grew, the fire you walked through, the battles you chose to fight, the days you refused to shrink. That's your story. That's your legacy. So choose growth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because comfort might feel good in the moment, but growth will make you unshakable. And the world needs more of that. Every single one of us carries within us a vision, a whisper of the person we could be, the life we could live, the contribution we could make. But between where we are and where we want to go is something far more powerful than willpower, and far more sustainable than bursts of motivation. That something is habit. Motivation is a spark. It's exciting. It's energetic. It's what gets us started. But like a spark, it fades quickly. We wake up on a Monday morning fired up, ready to change the world, ready to change ourselves. We make big promises. We say, this is it. This is the week I become someone new. But by Thursday or maybe even Tuesday, that spark is gone. Reality hits. Life gets in the way. And suddenly the fire we felt is nothing more than ash and frustration. But habits are different. Habits are quiet. They don't shout. They don't need applause. They're the small, almost invisible choices we make every single day. And over time, they become the architecture of our identity. Motivation fades, yes. But habits, they stay. They become who we are. The truth is, we don't need to change everything all at once. That pressure to revolutionize our lives overnight is often what keeps us stuck. We feel overwhelmed by the size of the mountain ahead, so we never take the first step. But imagine this instead. What if the only thing you needed to do today was show up? Not perfectly, just consistently. You see, the future version of you, the one you imagine when you close your eyes and think about the life you really want. That version of you isn't waiting at the finish line. That version is built in the everyday choices. The decision to move your body for 10 minutes. The pause to write just one paragraph in your journal. The courage to say no when something doesn't align with your values. These may seem like small things. They may seem insignificant. But they are not. These are, and each one, no matter how small, adds weight to the foundation of who you're becoming. One brick won't build a house, but lay one brick every single day. And over time you'll build something unshakable. We live in a world obsessed with big wins. Headlines scream about overnight success, about dramatic transformations, about meteoric rises. But what they often fail to mention is the truth behind those stories. The quiet repetition, the discipline, the systems. Because goals are not what change us. Systems do. The way we live each day is what determines who we become. We don't rise to the level of our ambition. We fall to the level of our preparation. And that's why habits matter so much. Not because they're glamorous, not because they're exciting, but because they're reliable. They're our anchor when things get hard. They're our map when we feel lost. When motivation disappears, as it inevitably will, habits remain. They carry us forward even when we don't feel like it. Especially when we don't feel like it. This is the beautiful, powerful truth. You don't have to be extraordinary to build an extraordinary life. You just have to be consistent. You just have to choose, again and again, to show up for your future self. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when no one is watching. Even when it feels like it's not making a difference. Because it is making a difference. Every time you choose the path that honors your future self, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. That vote might not win the election, but over time, vote after vote, the identity becomes undeniable. You stop trying to become that person and simply realize you already are. You become the person who moves daily. You become the person who reflects deeply. You become the person who speaks up, who stands firm, who lives in alignment with what matters most. Not because you had a breakthrough, not because of one magical moment, but because you made a habit of doing the right thing, even when it was the hard thing. And that's the invitation I want to offer you, to stop chasing motivation and start designing systems, to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating momentum through action, to trade in the temporary high of quick wins for the lasting fulfillment of steady growth. Start small, start simple. Let it be 10 minutes. Let it be one sentence. Let it be one decision that says, I care about who I'm becoming. Because once you start showing up, even in tiny ways, you build trust with yourself. You stop being someone who breaks promises to yourself and start becoming someone who honors them. And that changes everything. We all want transformation. We all want to live lives that are meaningful, intentional, powerful. But the way to get there isn't flashy. It's not found in big declarations or grand gestures. It's found in the quiet consistency of doing what matters, even when it doesn't seem to matter yet. So today, don't try to do everything. Don't chase the entire dream. Just lay one brick. Build a habit that your future self will thank you for. Then do it again tomorrow. And the next day. That's how transformation happens. Not all at once, but one choice at a time, one brick at a time, until one day you look around and realize the life you've been dreaming of is the life you're already living. There's a difference between being liked and being loved. One demands agreement, the other invites growth. When we surround ourselves with people who only echo back what we already believe, what we already say, and who we already are, we feel comfortable. It feels good, safe, easy. But comfort doesn't lead to greatness. Comfort doesn't stretch us. Comfort doesn't challenge the lies we've started to believe about our limitations. Comfort doesn't sharpen character, it dulls it. And if all we hear is our own voice echoed back to us, we never actually hear ourselves at all. The people we surround ourselves with are the architects of our future. They shape our thinking, fuel our ambition, or smother it. They either see us clearly, in all our flawed but beautiful potential, or they see only the image we project, the version of ourselves we want them to applaud. And too often we settle for the latter. We curate our circle, not for truth, but for comfort, not for clarity, but for validation. We mistake echoes for support, when what we really need are mirrors. Mirrors don't flatter, they don't conform, they don't give us permission to remain small. They show us who we are, not to shame us, but to remind us of who we could become. A true mirror, a person who reflects back our essence, our values, our blind spots. Our brilliance is rare, but when we find one, we find something invaluable. We find truth. This truth isn't always comfortable. It's not always easy to hear, but growth never is. That's why we need people who will ask the hard questions. People who won't let us get away with mediocrity. People who love us enough to risk our discomfort for the sake of our evolution. These are the people who stand in our corner, not just when we shine, but when we stumble, not just when we're right, but when we're wrong. They don't amplify our excuses. They dismantle them. They don't agree to keep the peace. They challenge to bring alignment. We all need someone who will look at us when we're about to give up and say, "That's not you. You were made for more." Someone who sees the moment we start compromising who we are and reminds us of why we began in the first place. This is love in its truest form. Truth, wrapped in compassion. Not agreement for agreement's sake, but reflection born from a deep desire to see us become who we're meant to be. There's a story about a young woman trying to make her way in the television world. At the time, she didn't look or sound like what the industry said was acceptable. She didn't fit the mold. She was told she was too emotional, too expressive, too real. One executive even told her she wasn't TV material. For many, that would have been the end. That kind of critique, that kind of rejection, can crush the spirit. But for her, there was one voice, just one, that made all the difference. A mentor who didn't echo the doubt, but mirrored the truth. This mentor said, "Your heart is your power, not your perfect. Not don't listen to them, but your heart is your power." That one reflection, honest, affirming, grounded, was enough to light the fire that built an empire. Her name is Oprah, and she didn't rise in spite of that truth. She rose because of it. That is the power of a mirror. One person who sees the real you can be more transformative than 100 who cheer for your mask. One person who says, "I see you, I believe in you, and I won't let you settle," can redirect the course of a life. So ask yourself, are the people around me mirrors or echo? Are they helping me evolve, or helping me stay the same? Are they challenging me to rise, or comforting me into stillness? The environment we choose, because yes, it is a choice, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The conversations we have, the feedback we accept, the standards we tolerate, these shape us more than we realize. When we surround ourselves with people who only reflect what we already know, we stop growing. But when we surround ourselves with people who see our blind spots and call out our brilliance, we begin to transform. Change doesn't happen in isolation. Breakthroughs don't happen in echo chambers. Real change, lasting change, requires community. It requires a circle of people who are brave enough to be honest, kind enough to be patient, and strong enough to hold us accountable. And we owe it to ourselves to find them, to build that kind of circle, to choose mirrors over echoes, truth over flattery, growth over comfort. Because the future you dream about, the future version of yourself that you hope one day to become, is not a solo project. It's a co-creation. It's shaped in every conversation, every challenge, every truth spoken in love. So choose wisely. Choose people who want more for you, not just from you. Choose those who see your flaws and still call you capable. Choose the ones who hold you to your highest standard, not because they expect perfection, but because they believe in your potential. You deserve to be seen, truly seen, not as who you've been or who you're pretending to be, but as who you are. And that kind of seeing can only happen when we let go of the echo and embrace the mirrors. It takes courage, it takes humility, but the reward is worth it, because when we're willing to be seen, we become willing to grow. And when we grow, we become the kind of person who in turn can become a mirror for someone else. That is how change spreads. That is how leaders are born. That is how the world shifts from safe agreement to courageous authenticity. And it starts not with the crowd, but with the circle, with the people you invite into your life, with the mirrors you choose to keep close. So what does it mean to become the best version of yourself? It means leading with clarity, living in alignment, healing deeply, growing boldly, acting consistently, and choosing truth over comfort, even when it costs. You don't find yourself. You build yourself with every hard choice, every honest word, every brave step forward. The best version of you isn't a destination. It's a direction, and the journey, it starts the moment you decide that you're worth it.